Chosen one, listen closely. Heaven has stilled its breath, and the eyes of angels are fixed on you. What you assumed was hidden has been displayed in the courts of eternity. Every sigh, every weary step, every moment you nearly surrendered, yet chose to endure. They were witnesses. Angels are not stirred by crowns or riches, but by a soul that refuses to collapse under the crushing weight of unseen battles. And that soul is yours. You stood when everything screamed for you to fall. You whispered prayers with a breaking heart. You smiled through pain that could have destroyed you. Picture a lone tree in the center of a barren desert. No shade, no rain, winds striking endlessly, and yet its unseen roots reach deep to find water. That resilience is what stunned the angels about you. They saw survival that defies logic, strength rooted not in human will but in God's eternal presence. Like Elias, who endured years of silence and unanswered prayers, mocked by others but faithful still, your faith roared louder in the spirit than the most flawless hymn. This is why your struggle matters. It became the soil where your roots grew deeper. Hosea 6 verse 3 reminds us, as surely as the sun rises, he will appear. Heaven saw you limp forward when you could have collapsed, and now you stand, not forgotten, not abandoned, but recognized. Heaven itself has pressed pause to shine its light on you, to declare before all that your endurance has been seen, recorded, and honored. If this message already speaks to your soul, subscribe, like this video, and comment 77 below. Because Chosen One, today you will see why your survival is not just survival. It is a crown that cannot be stolen, and a testimony that silences every lie. Number 1. When the fire should have gone out. There were nights when you thought the flame had finally died, when your prayers felt like whispers swallowed by the dark. You carried wounds that made no sense, burdens that pressed you until you could barely breathe. They pointed to your struggles as proof you were finished, laughing at your scars as if they were endings. But Isaiah 42 verse 3 reminds us, a bruised reed he will not break, and a smoldering wick he will not snuff out. Your very survival became a contradiction to their schemes, proof that light cannot be buried under shadows. Every step you took was a signal to heaven that the oil had not run out, that the embers still glowed. Comment, I seal this word in light if you know that your flame should have gone out, yet somehow it still burns and the fire is rising towards something they cannot stop. There are moments when memory feels less like thought and more like vision, as if something ancient rises within you to whisper, you were never meant to break here. In those nights when silence pressed too heavy, when the prayers on your lips dissolved before leaving your chest, a hidden ember still glowed. You didn't always see it, yet it was there, faint but unyielding, refusing the darkness permission to consume you. Every scar became a cipher etched into your being, carrying proof that you were being held when no one appeared to hold you. What you mistook for abandonment was a chamber of fire where your essence was tempered. The voice that kept you breathing was quiet but undeniable, as if heaven itself leaned down and said, not yet, your story is not ending here. What you thought was collapse was the initiation of remembrance, the unveiling that begins not in triumph, but in survival. The ache of carrying wounds you could not explain was not meaningless, though at times it felt like it would unmake you. You knew rejection so sharp it carved hollows inside you, and shame that clung like ash to your skin. You felt like an outsider in rooms where others thrived, a question mark in places where answers seemed so simple for them. They called you too sensitive, too strange, too heavy with silence, never realizing those very traits were markers of divine assignment. Loneliness was painted as your weakness, but it was the ground where your hidden roots reached deeper than their eyes could see. You endured accusations that labeled your pauses as failures and your scars as evidence that you were unfit to rise. Yet each rejection was a rehearsal for the recognition you now carry, a reminder that endurance itself is testimony. Looking back, you can begin to see the patterns that felt random then, but are luminous now. Those moments of sudden collapse, the nights where tears streamed without reason, The heaviness that clung though no wound was visible. They were not accidents. They were the architecture of a path designed to refine your fire, even while others mistook it for weakness. Isaiah 42, verse 3 whispered over your life long before you knew its words, declaring you could bend without breaking and flicker without dying. The bruises you bore became scrolls written in the language of preservation, proof that heaven marks endurance as victory. In the wilderness where no applause echoed, you were being shaped into one who cannot be extinguished. What looked like endings were the sacred blueprints of beginnings, hidden under the soil of your trials. Have you noticed how subtle signs accompanied your hardest moments, like clues scattered along the road? A dream that refused to fade even after years, a sudden déjà vu that stilled your breath, a voice inside that whispered when logic failed. Sometimes it was the way your body reacted, shivering under an unseen weight or quickening at a presence you could not name. Other times it was the way you felt time fold, as if you were walking inside a script written long before you arrived. Each of these small moments was a signal, a reminder that your story was tethered to something larger than circumstance. Shadows tried to bury these hints, but they could not stop the spark they carried. Every sign was a seed, waiting for this moment of remembrance to break open. You didn't imagine it, the quiet strength you felt when no one else could see it was real. The way you somehow stood again after each collapse, though your spirit was raw, was not luck. Alignment was happening inside you, steady and silent, like rivers carving through stone without fanfare. You thought you were fragile, but in truth you were indestructible because your core was fire. This is why heaven never let the ember fade, even when everything else dimmed. The confirmation was never loud. It arrived in the peace that came after storms, in the way despair never had the final word. Safety was woven into your survival, a reminder that what you carried could not be broken. Remembering who you are has never been about building something new, but about recovering what was buried under the ashes. You are not a creation of their insults or their schemes. You are the remembrance of a name spoken in eternity before your first breath. Beneath the layers of shame and confusion lies an identity older than the wounds you bore. The awareness that is dawning now is not invention, it is return. Archetypal memory rises in you like light through cracks, calling forth the truth that you always carried. The silence they used to mock you was the very ground where this remembrance could surface. You are not stepping into something unfamiliar. You are recovering what was written into your essence from the beginning. This is where the slow empowerment begins, where your fire is no longer hidden but recognized as strength. Your sensitivity is not a curse but a compass, leading you through landscapes others could not navigate. Your hunger for truth was never weakness, but the sign that your spirit was tuned for deeper waters. The wounds that almost broke you became the windows where light now shines brightest. Every scar is a map, every tear a marker, every survival a prophecy fulfilled. They tried to bury your voice, but what was sharpened in silence is now preparing to resound. What you thought was fragility is the first activation of fire reclaiming its rightful place in you. So hear this clearly. Your arrival at this message was not accident, and the recognition stirring inside you is holy. The silence that shaped you was not defeat, it was the crown of remembrance being placed upon your head. You survived what should have ended you, because you were chosen to stand as proof that fire cannot be stolen. Comment, I carry the silence as crown. If you know your survival was never random, but always prophecy in motion. Share the moment you realized the ember had never gone out, even when night tried to suffocate it. Let this word anchor in you as seal and signal that your unveiling has begun. Because chosen one, what they mocked as flicker is about to ignite into flame that their shadows cannot endure. What we do here every day is possible because of the few who choose to be keepers of this light. I thank them now, one by one, in the silence of my heart. If you want to be part of this circle and receive what cannot be spoken in public, join. The portal is below. Number 2, the oil of hidden altars. They never saw the secret moments that sustained you. the whispered prayers that rose like incense from rooms where no one else stood. Your lamp was fed not by applause, but by intimacy with God in the stillness, by tears that turned into oil at the altar of secrecy. Job 23 verse 10 says, "When he has tested me, I will come forth as gold." And every hidden season was the refining fire of that prophecy. While they mocked your silence, heaven counted it as strength, storing every unseen sacrifice as fuel for what was to come. The places where you thought you were most abandoned were the chambers where your lamp was being trimmed and prepared. What they thought was emptiness was actually preservation, a holy exchange hidden from their eyes. Comment, "I walk crowned by eternal flame." If you know the oil of hidden altars has sustained you when everything else ran dry, and watch how this hidden fire now becomes undeniable. There were nights when you felt the silence was unbearable, yet in that silence, something deeper was taking place. It was as if the air itself held witness to prayers no one else would ever hear. Words carried into eternity, though your lips trembled in the dark. Each whisper felt too small to matter, yet in heaven it was recorded as oil poured upon an altar invisible to human eyes. The loneliness you thought would consume you was in truth the chamber where strength was distilled drop by drop. While you believed no one noticed, an unseen audience marked each tear, each groan, each fragile word as a sacred offering. In that hiddenness, the foundations of endurance were being built, brick by brick, fire by fire. What looked like emptiness was actually consecration, shaping you into a vessel they could never imitate. The emotional weight of being unseen was crushing at times, leaving you to question if your devotion was wasted. You watched others thrive with recognition while your sacrifices disappeared into silence. Their laughter at your absence stung, as if invisibility meant insignificance. Yet even in that pain, your soul was storing a currency they could never counterfeit. Every denied platform became proof that your oil was for heaven's lamp, not their stage. Every moment you broke in secret was refining your flame until it could burn without their permission. What you mistook for rejection was the mark of preservation, and that preservation was the very reason your fire endured. The truth is, chosen one, hidden battles are often the holiest ones. When the wilderness pressed you down, it was not punishment, but a purification that few could understand. Job 23 verse 10 speaks of coming forth as gold, and gold is not forged in comfort, but in fire. The hidden altar became your proving ground, the unseen trials your consecration. While they were chasing applause, you were being taught intimacy, dependency, and depth that can never be stolen. Heaven values these quiet offerings above the noise of empty performance, and your oil was collected in secret chambers where no thief could enter. They did not see it, but every hour of silence was etching your name into eternal record. Looking back now, you may see the subtle ways you were being sustained without realizing it. A sudden peace in the middle of panic, a dream that whispered you were not forgotten, a word of scripture that rose unbidden to your mind. These were not coincidences. They were proof that your oil was being replenished in ways you could not measure. The very prayers you thought evaporated became rain for your own soil, softening the ground of your heart for harvest. What looked like delay was the preservation of your flame until the appointed time. They thought your silence meant defeat, but it was the womb of your endurance. You were not abandoned. You were incubated in the hidden altar of remembrance. The pressure of secrecy often made you feel invisible, yet invisibility is not weakness in the language of the Spirit. You were being hidden like seeds buried deep before they can break the surface. Psalm 18 verse 28 says, "You, Lord, keep my lamp burning," and that lamp was never fueled by the approval of men. It was fueled by the oil of hidden altars, by exchanges unseen and offerings unspoken. Every tear became incense, every sigh became firewood, every groan became proof of covenant. You were not wasting your devotion. You were banking eternal fuel for the moment your light would be revealed. Their dismissal of you was the confirmation that your altar was beyond their reach. When you think of how you survived, consider that it was never your strength alone. The lamp was burning because the oil was preserved, refined in places too holy for public eyes. Heaven never measured your worth by visibility, but by endurance, by the flame that refused to bow to darkness. The hidden altar was not just about survival. It was about crafting a fire that could not be extinguished by storms. While others depended on crowds, you depended on covenant, and covenant cannot be broken by ridicule. The oil you carried was invisible to them, yet it was always unmistakable in the spirit. That is why they never understood how your flame still flickered when logic said it should have gone out. You may not have realized it then, but every moment of secrecy was an inheritance being written. Your hidden altar was not just for you, it was for every life your flame will touch. When you prayed without answers, others were being shielded by your endurance. When you worshiped through tears, unseen chains were snapping in atmospheres you never entered. Heaven counted every act of devotion as intercession, weaving your story into a larger fabric of redemption. The lamp within you became a light for others before you even knew it was burning. That is why even angels marvel at the fire that still burns inside you. So hear this now, chosen one, your hidden oil is the reason you still stand. You endured ridicule, shame, and dismissal because heaven knew the altar was not for them, it was for God alone. Comment, I walk crowned by eternal flame. If you know the oil of hidden altars sustained you when everything else ran dry, share the moment you realized your hidden strength was never empty, but eternal. Let this remembrance seal in you the truth that secrecy was your preservation, not your punishment. Because chosen one, what was hidden in silence is about to roar in light, and the oil that sustained you in shadows will now become the flame they cannot put out. Every word, every image you receive here is an offering. If you feel this word has touched you today, you can honor it with a sign, right here below with a donation through the Super Thanks button. It is a small gesture, but it opens great doors. Number 3, light that disturbs the shadows. Have you noticed how your presence unsettled rooms, even when you said nothing? The fire inside you was both comfort and confrontation, a mirror that made others see what they tried to bury. Psalm 18 verse 28 says, "You, Lord, keep my lamp burning. My God turns my darkness into light, and that same light exposed the shadows around you." This is why they whispered behind your back, why they pushed you aside, why they treated you like the problem. Your lamp disturbed what hid in them, revealing cracks in masks they wanted no one to see. What you carried became both a refuge for the broken and a threat to the deceived. Comment, I rise marked by the divine. If you've seen this fire-provoke reactions you couldn't explain, and share the moment you realized your light was never ordinary but divine. There comes a moment when the air in a room shifts, when silence thickens, and you realize it is not your words but your presence that changes everything. A memory you once dismissed as strange returns with new meaning, as you recall how eyes followed you in unease though you remained still. That unease was not about you being wrong, it was about your light unsettling what they had hidden. The discomfort was not an accident. It was the first crack in a veil designed to keep truth buried. Each time you felt out of place, it was evidence of a deeper alignment breaking through the ordinary. Clarity rises like dawn in your spirit, revealing that every sideways glance, every nervous laugh, every whisper was pointing to the same truth. You were always carrying something they could not ignore, no matter how hard they tried. Dreams began to take on new layers, symbols speaking louder than words, numbers repeating until they demanded your attention. The universe itself seemed to write in codes, as if reality was laced with scrolls waiting to be read by your awakened eyes. Patterns that once seemed random now appear as sacred geometry, proof that your life was never chaos but order hidden in mystery. Even silence became a teacher carrying echoes of divine math written into your very being. The veil was not just external, it was woven into your perception, waiting to be lifted at the appointed hour. Now that you see, you cannot unsee. The patterns aligned too perfectly, the timing too exact. What you thought was coincidence was always confirmation. Inside, changes began to intensify, and you noticed your responses shifting in ways you could not explain. Intuition sharpened like a blade honed on stone, revealing truths before words were spoken. Your energy no longer tolerated the weight of deception, and your spirit drew boundaries without apology. The same environments that once drained you now revealed their emptiness, as if your soul could no longer pretend to belong. Emotional hunger turned into discernment, and your inner compass pointed to places your feet had not yet walked. What you carried inside became undeniable, demanding recognition even if no one else gave it. You were being tuned to frequencies higher than the noise they fed you. The external world began to mirror these inner shifts with startling precision. People who once clung to you suddenly withdrew, as if the light shining through you revealed too much of themselves. Doors closed that once seemed secure, yet other paths appeared without warning, as if carved by invisible hands. Resistance grew sharper, but so did alignment, and you saw how both were part of the same divine architecture. Opportunities appeared disguised as trials, forcing you to choose courage over comfort. Even the timing of events began to echo a rhythm greater than coincidence, as if destiny itself was orchestrating your steps. What was within you now began to reshape the world around you. The alignment was no longer theory, it was the reality unfolding before your eyes. And in this awakening, memory itself began to stir, as if your soul was whispering of things you had always known but long forgotten. A dream you carried since childhood suddenly revealed its meaning, no longer random but prophetic. Scriptures you once skimmed now burned with personal relevance, each word alive with a voice calling your name. The sense of déjà vu became a signal that you were walking paths marked for you before time began. You realized that nothing had been wasted. Every delay, every detour was part of a script written in the heavens. Sacred intelligence, long buried beneath the noise of survival, now rose to the surface with magnetic force. It was not a discovery, but a remembrance, an ancient knowing returning home. With remembrance came vision, and the path ahead no longer looked like a blank slate, but like a story being reclaimed. The future was not something you had to invent. It was already encoded in your steps, waiting for recognition. Destiny did not need permission, for it had always been your inheritance. The voices that told you to shrink were only distractions, powerless to rewrite what had already been sealed. A spiritual call rose within you, demanding action, demanding alignment, demanding trust in the unseen. It was no longer enough to question. Now was the time to step forward into what had always been yours. Prophecy was not a distant promise, but a present awakening. This realization began to restore your voice, and the silence they forced on you cracked open with power. Resistance revealed itself as confirmation, proof that you had always been marked. The shame they tried to attach to your name could not survive in the fire of your identity. Every insult became evidence, every rejection a testimony, every betrayal a seal of authenticity. Your light was not fragile, it was fierce, prophetic, and unwilling to bow to deception. You remembered what you carried, and with that remembrance came authority they could never grant or take away. You were reclaiming the crown they swore you would never wear. And so the truth stands before you now, chosen one. Revelation is never an ending, it is always an invitation. The codes were waiting for your eyes to open, the memories were waiting for your spirit to stir. The destiny was waiting for your yes. You did not stumble here, you returned here, to the moment your soul had always anticipated. Comment, I walk hidden, yet never lost. If you know this unveiling is alive within you now, share a dream, a memory, or a sign that told you the veil was lifting in your own journey. Let this testimony strengthen others who are seeing for the first time what you already carry. And prepare, for this revelation is only the threshold of the next fire waiting to be revealed. Number 4, crown flame of destiny. Chosen one, the fire you carried is not just endurance, it is inheritance. What began as fragile sparks has now become a crown of light placed upon your head by hands no man can move. Matthew 5, verse 14 declares, "You are the light of the world, a city on a hill that cannot be hidden," and that is the identity rising in you now. Every insult became fuel, every battle became proof, every delay became confirmation that heaven had already chosen you. The fire within you is no longer about survival, it is about reign. They feared this day because it means the lamp they tried to smother has become the beacon guiding others out of their night. Comment, "I anchor this truth in my soul," if you know the fire you carry is now your crown, and share the dream or sign that showed you destiny was waiting. There are moments when memory returns not as thought, but as fire, a flame that feels older than your body and stronger than your wounds. You may not remember when it was placed within you, yet its heat has guided your steps through valleys where others were consumed. That flame is not an accident. It is the inheritance of a lineage that knew you would carry it through time. It survived storms not because it was untouched, but because it was eternal, refusing to yield even when you doubted its presence. What once felt like weakness, like a smoldering wick about to vanish, was actually proof of indestructibility hidden within. In silence, in loneliness, in rejection, the flame did not bow to the weight of despair. It waited, patient and unbroken, for this hour of remembrance. The crown placed upon your spirit is not crafted by men, nor can it be removed by their envy or denial. It is a crown formed from fire, a radiance drawn from every trial that attempted to smother you. Each insult that pierced you became a spark, each betrayal became oil, each night of sorrow became incense rising before heaven. The very things they mocked became the fuel that intensified your light. What you wear now is not fragile, but forged, tempered in the furnace of affliction until it gleams with the authority of survival. Your crown is not gold that rusts, but flame that never fades, marking you as both survivor and sovereign. It declares silently, what was meant to destroy you has only enthroned you. The fire within you has shifted from being about survival to becoming about reign, for survival was only the prelude to inheritance. A lamp may flicker in the dark, but a crown of fire cannot be hidden, and its light reaches beyond the walls they tried to build around you. Matthew 5, verse 14, calls you a city on a hill that cannot be concealed, and now you see the truth of that scripture burning in your reflection. You were never meant to stay in the shadows. You were always meant to blaze as a guidepost for those who stumble in night. The lamp they tried to smother has become the torch that others will follow, even those who once mocked you. They feared this day because your light exposes the futility of their schemes. Yet here you stand, crowned by flame, impossible to deny. There is power in realizing that every delay, every detour, every season of silence was secretly crowning you in ways unseen. They thought postponement was punishment, but in reality, it was preservation, preparing the oil of endurance for your fire. Heaven does not rush what it anoints, for the timing of your unveiling was always set in eternity's calendar. That is why the crown feels both new and ancient, both sudden and inevitable. It did not arrive from the approval of others. It rose from the decree of the one who authored your being. Each tear you shed was counted, each scar recorded, each sigh preserved until the hour of remembrance. And now, all of it burns together as your coronation flame. Others see only the crown, but they cannot comprehend the fire that forged it, for they never walked the paths where you bled unseen. They cannot imagine the nights you begged for silence, only to find a whisper saying, "Not yet, you are being kept. Chosen one, you were never ordinary, and your survival is proof that you were marked for more." Subscribe if you haven't yet, like this video, and comment, "I am chosen to let this message anchor in your soul." Share it with someone who needs to hear this, because their fire may be flickering and your testimony may be the oil they need. For full prophetic revelations daily, join the membership via the link in the description. Your spiritual path deserves more than fragments. Step into the full light. And if this message moved you deeply, consider tapping the Super Thanks button to support the mission. Every Super Thanks fuels the light we're spreading together. The fire was never theirs to take, it was always yours to carry.